This is the first video in the Standard Descriptive Characteristics series. And in this video, we're going to cover precedence and the ranking order of motions. So what are standard descriptive characteristics and why are they so important? Well, each of the sections in Robert's Rules of Order that features a motion includes a list of the standard descriptive characteristics for that motion. Here's an example. This is the standard descriptive characteristics for the motion to recess, as shown in Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition. This provides 8 important aspects of that motion. And the great thing about the standard descriptive characteristics is that they're standard, meaning that the same 8 categories are listed in the same order for each motion. This is a great resource for anyone, no matter what your level is. Being able to find, understand, and use the standard descriptive characteristics is a huge tool to assist you in all your parliamentary endeavors. So let's look at these 8 categories now. They are precedence, application, whether or not the motion is in order when another has the floor, whether the motion requires a second, whether it's debatable, whether it's amendable, the vote requirement to adopt the motion, and whether or not the motion can be reconsidered. Through this video series, we're going to cover the entire list in detail. But in this video, we're going to focus on the first category, precedence. And we'll start by examining the pronunciation. There's a strong tendency to read this word as precedence, but Robert's Rules of Order actually gives the proper pronunciation, indicating that it is pronounced precedence. So if anyone tries to correct you when you say precedence, direct them to the footnote on page 54 of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition, or, better yet, direct them to this video. So now that we know how to pronounce it, what does precedence mean? Well, precedence is closely connected to the rank of motions, so let's cover both at the same time. In parliamentary law, there are 13 common ranking motions, as we see here. They're called ranking motions because they have a specific rank. Each motion you see here ranks above all the motions below it on this list. So the highest ranking motion is fix the time to which to adjourn, and the lowest ranking motion is the main motion, which is the motion that brings business before the assembly. The ranking motions fall into 3 categories. The highest ranking motions are called privileged motions. The next 7 motions on the list are called subsidiary motions. And at the bottom, the main motion is simply called the main motion. So to understand the rank of motions, let's take a look at it in action. Let's say a main motion is pending, so members are taking turns debating it. Then let's say a member obtains the floor in debate and says, I move to postpone the question to next month's meeting. It's a right of any member to make this motion. If it's adopted, the main motion vanishes from this meeting and will reappear at next month's meeting. So let's say this motion to postpone receives a second and is placed before the assembly. It then becomes the immediately pending motion, and members take turns debating it. That is, they debate whether to postpone the matter to the next session or whether to continue its consideration in this meeting. Then let's say a member obtains the floor and says, I move to recess for 15 minutes. The chair must now determine whether this motion is in order. Some members will complain that the motion to postpone to a certain time must be decided before another motion can be made. Others might argue that a motion to recess is in order. So which is it, and how do we know? Well, to determine whether a ranking motion is in order while another is pending, we can simply refer to the list of ranking motions. The determining factor will be the relationship between the immediately pending motion, which is the motion to postpone to a certain time, and the motion that is being made by the member, which in this case is the motion to recess. Now, it should be noted that the main motion is also pending at this time, but it is not the immediately pending motion. The immediately pending motion is the one that's stacked on top. Therefore, the motion to postpone to a certain time is the immediately pending motion, and the motion to recess is made by a member, but has not been placed before the assembly yet, because we first need to determine whether it is in order at this time. So let's do that now. If we compare these two on the list of ranking motions, we see that recess is higher on the list. That means that the motion to recess outranks the motion to postpone to a certain time. This is what's known as precedence, and it can be said that recess takes precedence over the motion postponed to a certain time. It can also be said that the motion to postpone to a certain time yields to the motion to recess. To take precedence over and to yield to are the same concept expressed from different points of view. So in this situation, the motion to recess is in order. And if it receives a second, it would properly be placed before the assembly and become the immediately pending motion. Now let's look at a different scenario. Let's say that the motion to postpone to a certain time is immediately pending and members are debating it. And let's say this time a member obtains the floor and makes a motion to amend the main motion and it receives a second. Is this in order at this time? Should the chair place it before the assembly or should the chair rule it out of order? Pause the video if you'd like more time. The correct answer is the chair must rule this out of order at this time. If we consult the list of ranking motions and compare the immediately pending motion, which is postponed to a certain time, to the motion made by the member, which is amend, we see that amend ranks below postponed to a certain time. Therefore, the motion is out of order at this time. If the motion to postpone to a certain time is put to a vote and lost, then it would disappear and the immediately pending motion would be the main motion. And at that time, the motion to amend would be in order, because when a main motion is the immediately pending motion, every motion on this list is in order, except, of course, for another main motion, which is only in order when no other motion is pending. And it is possible for any number of ranking motions to be pending at one time, provided that each is made at a time when it is in order, and the same principle holds true. The pending motion that was properly placed before the assembly last is the immediately pending motion. And only a motion that takes precedence over the immediately pending motion is in order. Now there is another subtle detail to understand here. Since recess is the highest ranking pending motion, we know that it is the immediately pending motion, and we know that no motion is in order that ranks below recess. However, the motion to recess is amendable, so a motion to amend is in order if it applies to the motion to recess. And in that case, we see that it rises to the level of recess, since it adheres to it. This means that, in this case, when the motion to amend is applied to the motion to recess and therefore becomes the immediately pending motion, we don't look to the motion amend on the list of ranking motions to determine which further motions are in order. We look to the motion it adheres to, which is recess. Now, the following situation you will never see in a meeting, but I will show it here for illustrative purposes. A motion for the previous question could be made and applied to an amendment to a motion to recess in order to prevent the making of secondary amendments. And this motion too would rise to the rank of recess, since it adheres to a motion that is adhered to recess. Another interesting aspect of the rank of motions that I'd like to point out is that their ranking order aligns with their appearance in Robert's Rules of Order. What do I mean by that? Well, Section 10 of Robert's Rules of Order is called the main motion, and it is completely dedicated to that topic. The next section in Robert's Rules of Order, Section 11, is called Postpone Indefinitely, and it covers the details of that motion. And each following section of Robert's Rules of Order covers the next ranking motion in order, so that section by section, the farther you flip into Robert's Rules of Order, the higher rank the motions will have, all the way up to Section 22. So, the better acquainted you become with the ranking order of motions, the greater familiarity you will have with the layout of Robert's Rules of Order. And gaining familiarity with the layout of Robert's Rules of Order will intrinsically provide you with greater familiarity with the ranking order of motions. However, if you haven't memorized the list yet, or if you simply want to double check, you can do so very easily by referring to tinted page 4 in the back of Robert's Rules of Order Newly Revised 12th edition. There, all 13 ranking motions are shown in their ranking order, all the way down to the main motion. It also shows which are the privileged motions and which are the subsidiary motions, and it also gives you helpful information about these motions, such as showing you that all of these motions are undebatable, while all of these motions are debatable. Now, after Section 22, there are 15 more sections, each covering a specific motion or set of motions, and each of these includes a list of standard descriptive characteristics. They are the incidental motions, which appear in Robert's Rules of Order in the order shown here, each number representing the section that is dedicated to that motion. These motions do not have a ranking order, but their standard descriptive characteristics do explain when each is in order depending on the particular parliamentary situation. This is followed by a category of motions known as motions that bring a question again before the assembly, which appears in Robert's Rules of Order in this sequence. So let's look at how the standard descriptive characteristics help us with these motions. Let's say a motion is being considered that admission to the summer picnic shall be $10 and parking shall be $5. And let's say it is moved and seconded to postpone this motion indefinitely. So the motion to postpone indefinitely is the immediately pending motion, which is simply a motion to kill the main motion for the remainder of the session. Therefore, the members are debating whether or not to kill the main motion. And let's say during this debate, a member obtains the floor and says, I move to divide the main motion to consider the price of admission and the price of parking separately. This motion is called division of a question. It is an incidental motion covered in Section 27 of Robert's Rules of Order. But is it in order at this time? There are two ways we can determine this. First, we can look up the standard descriptive characteristics of the motion division of a question to determine whether it takes precedence over postpone indefinitely. The standard descriptive characteristics are found within the first few paragraphs of each section that covers a motion. So we simply open Robert's Rules of Order and flip to the section on division of a question, which is Section 27. In the third paragraph of that section, we find the standard descriptive characteristics, and we read the following. The incidental motion for division of a question takes precedence over the main motion and over the subsidiary motion to postpone indefinitely. And that makes it perfectly clear that the motion for division of a question does take precedence in this situation and is in order. So the chair would place the motion before the assembly, and it would then become the immediately pending motion. The other way that we can determine this is to look at the standard descriptive characteristics for the motion postpone indefinitely to see whether it yields to division of a question. Once we pick up Robert's Rules of Order again, we will discover that postpone indefinitely is covered in Section 11 and that its standard descriptive characteristics are located in the second paragraph of that section, which states, the subsidiary motion to postpone indefinitely takes precedence over nothing except the main question to which it is applied. It is the lowest ranking subsidiary motion and yields to all other subsidiary motions, to all privileged motions, and to all applicable incidental motions. Since it yields to all applicable incidental motions, it yields to the motion division of a question, since it is an incidental motion. So no matter which way we look at it, we see that division of a question takes precedence and postpone indefinitely yields. That covers the first category in the standard descriptive characteristics, known as precedence.